Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Chapter 2's Talent Ed. I'll be joined today by the Head of Talent at Peak, Lorenzo Spina. Peak are on a mission to help businesses do great things by providing them with the ability to drive value from their data with decision intelligence. Peak have had great success and over the last year have grown their team by 100 people, now sitting at 200 people in total. They've explored new markets and are trying new techniques and strategies to make sure that they can achieve their goals. So whether it be championing D&I, women in tech, or using employer brand strategy, listen in to hear Lorenzo's tips and tricks on how to achieve your goals. A huge welcome to Lorenzo Spina, who I am a huge fan of, working as the Head of Talent at Peak. Lorenzo, you and I have known each other for probably coming up to about 6 months now. You're a friend of Chapter 2's and you've obviously joined us on some of our webinars in the past. So thank you so much for taking some time again today to share some of your experience and your insight with our listeners here at Chapter 2's Talent Ed. So I think if we can just kind of kick off with a bit of an introduction from you. I don't think I'll do it justice. So I'd love to sort of hear from you in terms of your experience and what brought you to Peak and here today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, great to speak to you again, Sophie. So yeah, I've been at Peak 7 months now. So for people who don't know who Peak are, AI system, basically AI company that provides a new category of AI called decision intelligence. I've worked in agency, RPO, and currently in-house. And I suppose what I'm really passionate about is driving high performing teams when it comes to talent acquisition, probably building out in-house capabilities and direct sourcing models is where I find my fun, because I love working on an employer brand proposition, but also being able to go out to market and provide people with, flourishing careers. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's been 7 months, but it's been a busy 7 months. There's been a lot going on. So obviously since you started, I know that Peak's got currently about 200 employees, but in the last year alone, that's doubled, hasn't it? That's over 100 employees in that time. So how's that been for you? I mean, there's been a pandemic going on at the same time. How's it been going over the last few months?
Yeah, I think it's fast paced, it's exciting, multinational company. So headquarters in Manchester in England, but also in Jaipur in North India. We've also started to recruit in the US as well. So it's a lot of moving parts. It's exciting that we've been able to grow our team. I've added a couple more talent managers to the team as well to help with scaling our businesses. And essentially what we're looking to do is double in size this year, but then also continue to do so. So yeah, we completed Series B funding in February this year, just after I joined in January. So it's very much around actually driving that commercial growth and setting up our team for success for the future. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And congratulations on the funding. I mean, it's obviously then creating a huge amount of growth since then. So that's brilliant. So let's take it back to the beginning. And obviously when you joined at Peak, you were 100 strong staff. That's still a substantial amount of people. What was it like then? Is it just to kind of set the scene for that and then basically how that's grown from there? What was it like when you first came in and joined the team?
Yeah, I think very much value driven. So everybody who joins Peak feels part of Peak, and our long-term strategy is to really drive the business forward with large ambitions to hopefully IPO in the future. So we want to be a real mover and shaker in the industry. The great thing around Peak is that even though we provide AI solutions, we've created this category of AI. So we're looking to become category leaders. So we're all on a mission where we want to drive that forward. Got great co-founders, and I think that vision comes from the leadership team around actually providing an amazing company that everybody wants to be part of, and where you can, I suppose, reach your full potential in whatever job or remit that you come and take here at Peak. So it's very much about portraying that message in the external market when we go out to market to recruit around the opportunity that we can present. And I suppose my job and our talent team really focus on how we provide that authentic glimpse into Peak, what it's like to work here, what our values look like, and I suppose what our culture is, and what we can provide for those individuals.
Yeah, and that's so you've done it so well. I remember back to the webinar when you were speaking with Corey Arcard, who was then at Collinson, now at Wayfair, and we were talking about kind of the peaks, the transparency on your website. You know, when you're talking about D&I, women in tech, etc. And he was even saying, you know, hats off to you. You are doing that, and you're very open in terms of the steps that you're taking there at Peak. And sort of putting into practice what you're preaching, definitely. So was that a conscious decision? That's something that you've gone out of your way to do?
Yeah, I think something that's, you know, really important here is that our values and our culture is really defined. If we're going to become category leaders, we need to do something that's going to, I suppose, disrupt the market. By investing in our people, we believe, you know, we'll be able to really take people on that journey. So on our careers site, for example, we publish all of our values, you know, being open, driven, responsible, and it's something that we're all passionate about. So as part of our recruitment process, it's all values driven. So people need to, I suppose, be on board with how we are as individuals, how we're, you know, highly passionate, and how we want to drive that business forward. On top of that, you know, we've got another initiative on our careers website that we strongly hold close here, and we run a committee which is to do with inclusion and diversity. And this April, we set out where we currently are. So, for example, talking about females in tech, we're obviously a tech business. We've I believe 28% of our colleagues and teammates are female as of April this year. We've set a 2025 strategy where we want 50% of our business to be female orientated. So ambitious goals, and that's something that really focuses us, but also realistic milestones that we can achieve. And we've had some of that success already in the last few months. But we've got a, I suppose, inclusion and diversity committee that drive that forward, and anybody can be part of that committee, which is great to see. And that's held on a weekly basis. So.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's really good. Is it just going back to what you were mentioning about sort of the values of the company? Sorry. So doubling in size in a really short space of time. I'm sure it's been hard, or you know, you'd probably had to be strategic about making sure that those values and an aligned mission continues to be central to the business. Is that right? Would I be right in saying that? Have you had to kind of be proactive in how you manage that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And this year we went through, well, our people team, we know talent forms part of that people team. And again, it's a people team rather than a HR team. It's all about our colleagues, our teammates. We went through a culture manifesto. So re-looked at our values, re-looked at what they mean for us individually, what they mean for us as a company, and how we're strategically going to reach that end goal or that mission, and then drive that business forward. So very much we've renewed that. We've got all of our values, as I said, on our website. So we want to be very open about those, so that people who do look at our careers are actually looking at those and saying, actually, yes, I am open, I am responsible, I am driven, for example. I can be part of that culture. And then as a talent team, more so, we're, I suppose, advocates and ambassadors of our values. So as part of our screening process, we're having screening calls with candidates and really understanding, okay, you know, how do they showcase those values? How will they fit into Peak? And obviously through that recruitment process, which again, we've been very open about, we've you know, inputted that onto our careers website for all to see, so that we can say, okay, it is going to be, you know, a 4-stage process, but this is what each step looks like. And actually, it's really important for that candidate to make sure that they're aware of Peak in all of its success, but also its challenges. So we want to be honest around those challenges that they may face, and how agile and, you know, how quick we are with regards to scaling, and what that may look like from a breadth of experience, but also a scalability factor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any avenues or groups or tools that you use or that you've found value in as you've grown? So an example is, I was talking when I was talking to Will Beaton, who works for my tutor. He was talking about a membership organisation called People Minds, and they just kind of share best practice and processes and things like that for startups or scaling companies. And it's something that people can kind of lean into to get inspiration, ideas, and that sort of thing. Is there anything that you've used or you've had experience with that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think networks are very important. So I think where we are as a talent team, or even as a business, so we ask all of our leaders and our colleagues to, I suppose, look at self-development. So I give all my team some time to, work on self-development, whether that's get mentors outside of our business or mentors inside of the business, or whether that's actually how do I become the best talent manager possible in the external market. I know Rich, who's our CEO, is part of a SaaS-based scale-up group. I'm part of some talent communities and networks, and always like to keep abreast of industry news, what's happening with employment law, standards, best practices, ideas. More so for me, it's more around employer brand, because that's where I find my love and passion and tools, so that we're able to deliver more. I think from a people team, they're involved in a number of webinars, whether that's HR Grapevine or, numerous CIPD, leading edge network forums and groups. So I think learning has to be consistent. It's something that I try and do. It's something that I always try and keep one toe dipped into. And the reason for that, I think, as you scale, you learn from others. And that's whether you're learning from mistakes or potentially where we actually make the mistakes and learn from those. So the best example of that is that we've just held our own hiring day in Pune, in India. So it was specifically for senior software engineers with over 3 years of experience. We wanted to test how we attracted more of that market, especially in that niche skill set. So we held a remote hiring day where we concluded all parts of that interview process in one condensed day, apart from the founder stage, where the week after they could meet one of our co-founders and really have that, one-to-one connection and that conversation around any questions that they had for that co-founder, or whether that was around understanding, Peak's, I suppose, scalability and growth plans further.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds brilliant. How did it go? Did you find that the candidates were really engaged? I'm sure that they'd enjoyed having that face-to-face time.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of learnings. So yeah, I think as it was our first event, being completely honest, there was things that we looked back on and thought, what, we can change this. Maybe we need to market a bit better. Maybe have more of a time frame. The great thing is that it was more of a brand activity with the end goal of hopefully making some offers. We've made some offers on the back end of it. Hopefully they join. So it was only a couple of weeks ago that we held that. So yeah, I think it was a successful event in all of its entirety, but lots of lessons to learn from that as well. And that's where I say, let's trial it. If it doesn't work, at least we know, okay, what worked well, where can we adapt that going forward, and so on. But yeah, in total, it was held on a Saturday morning, and we had 112 applications. Out of that, you can expect a drop off. So we had, I think, 39 people go through to the technical coding challenge, as in the coding test that we set out. And then on the back end of that, we had a handful going through to second stage interview with some offers on the back end of that. So in all of its entirety, you can say it was a success because we, organically held that event, worked with our amazing marketing team to, push that content and advertise that. And obviously from a talent perspective, really drive that and make sure that we were working with our engineering team on the day, what we wanted to talk about, and really how we engage with those senior software engineers that potentially we wouldn't have been able to tap into otherwise.
Yeah. And, like you say, it sounds like it was a success, but even if there were lessons to be learned, you've got to be in it to win it, haven't you? You've got to try these things. And as you know, I'm always on the phone to you when I want some new, fresh ideas. I think you're great at that. So good for you for trying. That sort of brings us on to the growth that you're experiencing, but also moving into new countries, new markets, etc. How have you found that?
Yeah, really, really exciting actually. So I think any challenge is exciting when you get through it. At times you're scratching your head and you're thinking, right, what do we need to look at? I think it's really exciting for me personally as well, for my own development. So understanding, I suppose, market conditions, benefits, cultural alignment, and then working with, I suppose, external parties to really understand what that looks like in detail, whether that's, market salaries or actually what standard benefits do employers have, for example, in the US compared to the UK, understanding notice periods, and I suppose more so around mapping a new market. So, okay, we've built quite a good network in the UK around who do we want to target for for talent. So, you know, if they've got the same technology stack as us, for example, our engineering team,
Yeah,
or
sure.
actually the commercial managers at a set company are really good because they work on enterprise sales, they work in technology and so on. So we've built up a bit of a market map, and again, that's through trial and error, and obviously having these conversations and engaging with those candidates at those companies. When you move to a new territory, it's very much from scratch. So it's really understanding, okay, what processes, what metrics do we have in place in the UK? Will we be able to embed some of those, for example, in new territories? But then very much, I suppose, learning, and I think that's the biggest point to it. Is it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to tap into a new market which is very much untapped, and really selling Peak to that market. And I think that's the excitement, because we're not a startup anymore, we're a scale up, and we can use our successes from the UK and India to go into the US.
Yeah, definitely. Is it, and with that in mind as well then, so obviously with your sort of recruitment and your talent acquisition hat on, do you feel like that happens differently in different areas? Is there sort of do you have to adapt your process or your recruitment model as well within those regions?
Yeah, absolutely. I use India as the best scenario of that, actually, just from experience. So in India, culturally, hierarchy's more known than the UK or the US. So job titles quite specific and important to individuals. Learning and development is really important to colleagues in India, which is great to see. And obviously, we've got a head of L&D in place here at Peak to, you know, develop our employees as it currently stands. But what I think is probably the biggest difference with regards to recruitment in India compared to the UK is that there's more drop-offs. So a lot of people accept roles, but then actually when they come to physically start, probably pull out through that onboarding or pre-onboarding period. So it's about understanding how we drive initiatives to try and mitigate that risk, but then also make sure that the candidate that we are offering is really happy with our offer and they're excited about joining. So how do we really get that on board with that candidate? But yeah, that seems to be one of the biggest challenges in India, which hopefully we're addressing and trying to reduce. But yeah, it's just understanding how we, I suppose, fill that gap.
Yeah, sure. And is there anything that, I mean, obviously you said like it's very much a learning curve at the moment, but is there anything you've noticed since you've started on that journey that has improved that challenge, or is there anything that you think you can kind of start to implement from an earlier point?
Yeah, I think our employer brand was probably non-existent in India.
Okay.
So a lot of the team we had in India were either through referrals or previous networks. So, for example, if an engineering manager joined, there'd no engineers to join that team as well.
Sure,
I think we were very much an unknown, but because we've scaled quite quickly in India, as in doubled in size our engineering team in a year, opened a new location in Pune, so there's a larger talent pool for engineers as well. It's a tech hub. We've been able to understand what other companies offer in terms of not just salaries but also total comp, which we are very competitive, which is exciting. So we have, I suppose, understood market conditions a little bit better. People are starting to see Peak as a scale up rather than a startup. So there's more security based around Peak rather than, let's say, 6-7 months ago where we might have had a smaller team. We can actually say our engineering teams are like this. This is how big we are on a global basis. You've got the opportunity to work with UK teams, and obviously as we go into the US teams. But I think the biggest, I suppose, talent change, not just working with, I work with a PR agency on some of that talent brand stuff to get us seen as an employer of choice in India. But from a talent perspective, I would say we've created our own careers page for India as well, which has cultural alignment. So from a benefits package, there's some key benefits that are really important that we provide for all of our colleagues, by the way, but we just address them slightly higher up the, I suppose, not pecking order, but in that showcase of that benefit.
Yeah.
But then also from a talent team, really drilling into that candidates' motivations is really important throughout that stage. So with India, our talent manager and talent managers really look at understanding and keeping in contact with that candidate very regularly. In the UK, it's probably would be seen as, okay, I've already spoken to you this week, I don't need to speak to you again. Whereas it's common courtesy in India that they keep in contact every few days. with their recruiter or with their candidate. So yeah, it's just learning those cultural differences.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a sort of, so you say that obviously you've been able to kind of lean on local suppliers as well to hopefully, allow you to get up to speed as quickly as possible with those slight differences?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
it's all a learning curve, and sometimes you need to adapt to that location or adapt to what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, we're working with universities, campuses in India as well, in particular near Jaipur, where our headquarter is in India, for that early talent, so that we can adapt that and obviously help them progress through their career.
Yeah, brilliant. And so let's talk about the current UK market. So when we've been talking to clients and associates within the industry, the feedback that I've certainly been hearing is that it's tough out there. It's tough in talent acquisition at the moment. The market seems to have gone insane, when you're either recruiting for the company as a whole or recruiting recruiters or talent partners, etc. And it's a challenge on sort of multiple levels, but candidates have got huge opportunities available to them. So you might have a reduction in available candidates, you might have a high level of attrition, you might have candidates with multiple offers on the table, and it's understanding how to kind of stand out from the crowd and make sure that you're staying ahead of the curve with that. I think you do that brilliantly. I think Peak do that brilliantly, and it's all about having a window into your world, which we talk about all the time, and I think that's what you do so well, because you have got some great benefits and a great culture there, but you absolutely put it out there for the world to see as well. So, I mean, I could name so many things. We were talking about them earlier, having on your website information on your diversity and inclusion policies, the work that you're doing to bring women into tech, the process that people can expect to see, the benefits that you might have as part of Peak. And it's led you obviously to win multiple awards, which we'll come on to. But can you just tell us a little bit about that? I'm sure it's been done intentionally, but does that enable you to stand out from the crowd when you're trying to recruit that top talent?
Yeah, I think where most companies potentially get talent acquisition wrong is by having a brand that they are not actually, so it's not authentic. So they're trying to sell something that they're not actually true to them. I think because our values are so aligned, we try and showcase that. I think it's been difficult over the last 18 months because you can't do as many videos of people or offices, but you can still do talking heads. We've worked a lot on blogs over the last year in particular. Also looking at, I suppose, driving our social media pages, so really taking ownership, replying on Glassdoor, becoming more of an engaged employer on Glassdoor, Indeed. Then also creating our life page on LinkedIn, investing in tools that I suppose will increase our brand visibility as well. So specific tools in engineering, specific tools that I suppose do that on a global scale as well. So it's understanding that local market. So we use a couple of tools in India, which are slightly different to obviously the UK, and really understanding what they look like. So yeah, I think if you're transparent with candidates, I think once everyone finds out about Peak and the journey, it's very difficult for people not to love the company. But again, it's again about how do you nurture people into finding out more about Peak, and how do you get your content out there. So we've got a great marketing team that we obviously work with, and we're doing lots in this space. I think the second half this year we'll try and do some more, as in more than we have done in the first half this year. But yeah, just making sure that content's relevant, it appeals to your set audience. I think that's where people get it wrong as well. Sometimes they make it so generic, and I think historically I've made a mistake in previous companies around saying, right, this is our culture, come and work for us. But if you're trying to, let's say, recruit somebody in sales and then somebody in customer service, for example, they're two totally different profiles. Sometimes obviously they hybrid, but their motivations, their drive might be totally different. So if you're saying to a customer service advisor, for example, you're going to offer them great earning opportunity, lots of commission, you're going to be a high flyer, that probably wouldn't appeal to them. And I'm not saying that appeals to all sales profiles either, but typically you understand the difference. Whereas if you're trying to appeal to engineers, and they're probably more excited about the projects, the technology stack they're working on.
Yeah.
What value can they add to Peak? How are they going to transform our AI platform and really drive decision intelligence into the future?
Yeah, and like obviously there's only a limited amount of content, I suppose, that you can physically put out, but you've done a good job at kind of capturing a range of, like, a day in the life at Peak, I think it's called on the website, and having those different roles, and that video, you know, having that actual sight of what somebody's doing, what they like about working for Peak, what's exciting, what they've got coming up. I think it's very authentic, and I think people really want to see that. I think gone are the days where you maybe just have a list of benefits. It's like they want to actually take a tangible thing away. And the website, I mean, if anyone's watching, and I would absolutely recommend going and having a look at it, because I genuinely do, if ever talking to other clients about, you know, what they might want to, where they might want to be getting, I always reference Peak. I think it's brilliant. I think that's something to kind of come on to, really. Is it if you're talking to you've talked about how you've moved into kind of a scale up from a startup, which is absolutely brilliant. But for those slightly younger startups that are just, you know, embarking on their journey, what would you say? Like, what would you say they should? I know it's very, very broad, but kind of as a starting point, where should they focus their attention? What should they be doing?
Yeah, I think the leadership buy-in is probably the most important aspect. Obviously, if they're in talent, they've probably been brought in because there's some buy-in from leadership already, which is good to see. I think it's really understanding then what that forecast of recruitment activity looks like. So how many roles, where are they situated, what teams, and really understanding what that value proposition is for that specific employer. So, you know, are they, you know, have they got ambitions to be market leaders? Are they very much more of a sustainable company? You know, how do they get their message and that message over to candidates? So why, I always say in all of my briefing calls with managers and to the team, to really understand, get underneath, you know, the nails of that hiring manager, to understand what is that unique selling point of that role. That manager should know that off by heart. Why would somebody leave a very stable, you know, job that they're happy in to make a move over to Peak or whatever that startup is? So I think you need to set I suppose, a purpose. So understand what that is really from leadership team, what direction you want to move in, what that company strategy is, and then what your values are. Every company will have their own values, how those align. Just make sure that they're very clear. And if they do evolve, which is absolutely fine, how they evolve with the business. So again, it's authentic. And then I think it's all about actually how do you showcase yourself in that external market. So, you know, different industries will have a different way of recruiting. So, you know, white collars totally different to blue collar, which is absolutely fine. But it's understanding what process works for those individual areas. You know, some people will need to spend more money on marketing content. Some people will need to actually do more headhunting because it's such a niche field. So it's understanding what those capabilities are and how they can ask for external help as well. I always, you know, have conversations with you, Sophie, with agencies, with other people in my network, to really understand what that market is saying externally as well. And I pull upon mentors as well who have been through that scale up journey, worked for enterprise businesses, so that I can develop continuously as well. And I think that's the most important thing is, you know, I don't have all the answers, but, you know, people who work in a business might have great ideas, even if they do work in other teams. So, you know, if you can get them on board, they become advocates of talent as well. And that's probably one of the most important things, is make sure that everybody in that company is on board with recruiting and helping that business, you know, grow and develop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned mentors there, just briefly, whether it's mentors or committees. I think everybody that we've spoken to on Talent Ed has said that when you're a small company, or when you become, you know, a slightly bigger scale up, having that committee that takes ownership of something or champions something, or having a mentor, you know, everyone really should have a mentor, because we all want to continue to learn. So I think that's a really good point. And I think that's it's very valid. And I think it's something, if it isn't in place, that everyone should try to look to put in place. I've got a mentor, the team have all got a mentor, and I think it's really beneficial. Okay, brilliant. Well, just to finish, so tell us a little bit about what we can expect to see in the future. I mean, we're doubling in size, we're going into all sorts of new great locations. What can we expect to see from Peak over the next year?
Yeah, I think a lot more exciting news. I think a lot more growth, a lot more talented people, hopefully, on board here at Peak. Definitely, obviously, we're just about to enter in the US, so we'll have our first, but hopefully multiple, I suppose, colleagues and teammates on the ground in the US.
Yeah.
Further growth in the UK and India. I think definitely more big brand customers underneath our belt as well, which would be exciting. And then, yeah, I think it's just the pace we're growing is, we've created this new movement, this new category of AI, which I know I keep hanging on about, which is called decision intelligence. But I think the long-term vision is that when somebody thinks about decision intelligence, they think of Peak. And when they think of Peak, they think of decision intelligence. So that's the end goal. I think from a talent perspective, is bringing on talented people who want to be part of that journey. And, whether they stay for 4, 5, 10 years, whatever that is, they can say, yeah, I was part of that growth. So that's something that I'm passionate about, and I know the team are. I think from a talent perspective, I think there's a number of initiatives we're working on, which I'm sure we'll speak about further. But I think it's just actually improving our careers website further. I think we can do a little piece around personalization. Don't want to give you too many ideas now. But yeah, just looking at, I suppose, how we improve reporting capabilities. I think forecasting is really important, especially as we scale. I think we've got a good idea of what that looks like now with some, I suppose, approval governance in place, but always continuously improving our processes. And I think there's still quite a lot we can do around inclusion and diversity through the application process. So I think they're the quick changes that we'll see over the next 6 to 12 months.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it's really exciting. And I know you guys are working really hard, so congratulations on everything that you've achieved. I'll certainly keep an eye out. And for anyone that is watching, as I said, I've said it once, but I'll say it one last time, definitely go and have a look at the Peak website, because I think it's very informative. I think it's great. I think it's inspirational in terms of, where you want to be with your employer brand and the opportunities that are available. So well done. Hats off to you. And thank you so much again for taking the time, Lorenzo. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure all of the listeners will appreciate your insight as well. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Sophie. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.